Welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and start the program now. So those of you still standing, you can still stand, but we'll want to lower the volume a little bit. There's plenty of seats up here. Russ is ready. It was a little hard to pull him away from hugging so many people, and I feel kind of bad about that. But that's part of being a department chair. It's moving people along. It's been great seeing all of you tonight. And we are here to celebrate Dr. Russ Proctor upon his retirement, and this turnout is absolutely amazing. So let's do a round of applause just for everyone being here. My name is Zach Hart, and I am the chair of the Department of Communication here at NKU. I know I saw a number of students from when I first started teaching here, so it's really just amazing seeing people from all different times that have been part of the Department of Communication here at NKU. You will hear many wonderful stories about Russ tonight, but I first wanted to give a brief overview of his career. Russ grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and completed his undergraduate degree in communication arts at Oakland University outside Detroit. He received his master's in communication studies from Northern Illinois University. And I realized I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, and you were living there when I was probably in high school, I guess, right? So we were only like 30 miles apart then. So, and he got his PhD in interpersonal communication from Bowling Green State University. He previously served as an instructor at Elmhurst College and North Central College in Illinois and joined the NKU faculty in 1991. He earned tenure in 1995 and was promoted to full professor in 2001. And for many years, he served as the director of our speech communication program. Russ is well known for teaching our interpersonal communication and interviewing courses, but also for his Symbols and Metaphors honors course and his graduate contemplative pedagogy class. He is co-author of two of the top-selling interpersonal communication textbooks in the world. One's called Looking Out, Looking In, and the other one is called Interplay. He is husband to the wonderful and beautiful Pam. And dad to his two awesome sons, RP and Randy, who's in Ireland, right? Oh, he's in Europe, okay. I knew he was in Dublin a little while ago. And also father-in-law to his dear daughter, Millie. As you know, Russ is a huge fan of Facebook, and which was perfect for somebody really interested in interpersonal communication. So I thought I would read his profile, which I think really captures him pretty well. So here's what Russ says about himself. I'm a communication professor at Northern Kentucky University. I'm crazy about my wife Pam and our sons RP and Randy. I love sports, especially baseball, cooking, especially in the summer, and being a couch potato, especially on Sunday afternoons. Huge fan of the Cincinnati Reds and Bengals, NKU, and our church Crossroads. I co-author two interpersonal communication textbooks, Looking Out, Looking In, and Interplay. I love movies, rock and roll, and laughing till my sides hurt. Russ has had a huge positive impact on many, many students and colleagues at NKU, as evidenced by this tremendous turnout here tonight. Many people traveled from far away. It's just absolutely awesome to see. For myself, I am incredibly grateful that he called me 13 and a half years ago to interview for a faculty position in the communication department at NKU. His mentorship and friendship changed my life. I would not be standing here today in my role as a department chair without his constant and unwavering support through many professional and personal highs and lows over the years. Thank you so much, Russ. We now have a special presentation that was put together by a few of our alums in his honor.
Thank you for being.
Good evening. I am so pleased to be able to add my voice to those of others who are honoring Russ at this time of his approaching retirement. Russ and I go back to my first days here at Northern Kentucky University in an effort to try to better understand our students and the teaching learning process on our campus. Russ and I taught 2 semesters of University 101, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Out of that experience developed a highly valued friendship for me, but also gave me firsthand knowledge of what Russ Proctor means to this university and to its students. Russ represents, from my perspective at least, the very heart of what makes this university special. His commitment to students, to the teaching learning process, and the absolute admiration, and I dare say love, that students feel about Dr. Proctor is something that is special and represents the very best of what universities have to offer their students. So I'm pleased to honor Russ this evening. I'm pleased to recognize his accomplishments. This university has been and will continue to be a better place because of him. And as he and Pam approach this next chapter in their lives, we offer them nothing but the best. Rachel and I have enjoyed their friendship, and we look forward to that friendship continuing. Russ, thank you so very much for what you've meant to our students, meant to this university, and thank you for your friendship.
Hey Russ, it's Ron. I'm sure your colleagues are feeling very wistful about your leaving NKU. By comparison, I come off like a champ. I get more time to work with you on books and a better shot at you and Pam coming out to Santa Barbara to play with us. But whatever happens, best of luck on retirement. It's well deserved, and I hope this new chapter in your life is a blast. See you soon.
He's back at home plate. They ran him up the first base foul line. They're approaching the mound. The bullpenners are coming out, and everybody's getting in on the celebration at the mound as the crowd pours here.
How about you never do that again?
We love you, Dad.
Russ, first let me say congratulations on a well-earned retirement. Second, I want to say thank you for being a teacher, a mentor, and a friend all these many years. It's not just that you made an impact, but how indelible that impact was made. I know I'm a better person for having known you, and the world is a better place for you being in it. I wish you and Pam and the rest of your family all the best as you write this next chapter of your life, and I just hope there's a few Hey Todds in that next chapter.
Hey, sweetie, you're the most wonderful husband in the world. I met you several decades ago, and when I met you, you were working in a foundry, but I still knew you were the perfect guy for me. I'm so proud of all you've accomplished. This is pretty remarkable. I know you love NKU, so do I. I love what it's given us. I'm just so proud of you. Can't wait to see what comes next in our lives together. Bye-bye.
So our first speaker tonight is the President Emeritus of NKU, Dr. James Votruba.
Thank you, Zach. Boy, this is like a trip down memory lane, isn't it? Let's all, listen. Hey, how about this? How many of you out there got one of the big Smarties? Yeah, right. You all didn't get big ones. I didn't either. I had to go out and buy this. I feel like we should just stand up and sing YMCA, don't you? I mean, how many of you can remember Dr. Proctor singing YMCA? Russ, I got to tell you, getting ready for this, a whole lot of memories washed over me. University 101, where I saw what it means to engage students. The Outstanding Faculty Award, that first year that I was here, the Frank Sinton Milburn Award, the VVV process, the strategic planning process. Russ was a co-chair of that process, and we went out in vans, and ate chicken on styrofoam and listened to the people, didn't we? It was a wonderful, powerful moment. I also remember being anointed at my own retirement. You forced me to get down on my knees as you blessed me with Smarties. I can't. So I'm honored to be here tonight, to be part of this celebration of the life and the work of my dear friend Russ Proctor, and to recognize the many contributions of his wonderful spouse, Pam. How touching that was, and what a fitting way to end that recognition. I have to tell you that the New York Stock Exchange today reported that Smarty stock is down 50%. So I hope you investors got out by now. The word is out that Dr. Proctor is no longer throwing them. I have to tell you, many years ago, I was invited to address the communications faculty at their annual spring gathering. I began my remarks only to have faculty at various times shout out for me to cover this, cover that, elaborate on this, elaborate on that, clarify, so you remember, clarify something else, and so forth. I thought to myself, there's no question that these are the communication faculty. Now, the week before, I had been asked to speak at a similar function hosted by the math faculty. Got through my notes, no problem. This is a large university with many houses. So I have to tell you, as I stand here tonight, I am fully prepared and fully expecting suggestions from the audience as I proceed through my brief remarks. I expect nothing less. Russ Proctor and I have been friends since I arrived in 1997. We forged that friendship out of the work that I think we both cherished in the institution in which we were doing it. He co-chaired the university strategic planning process. We later taught several sections of University 101. He was my guide, he was my mentor, and he was my friend as I learned about Northern Kentucky University. David Brooks recently published a book entitled The Road to Character. In that book, he suggests that there are two kinds of virtues: resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Resume virtues focus on a person's ambition, their accomplishments, their recognitions, and their positions. In short, resume virtues focus on what you've accomplished during your life. Important, certainly. By contrast, eulogy virtues focus on who you are, your integrity, your generosity, your compassion, your hopefulness, your humility, your capacity to bring out the very best in those around you. Now, Russ's career reflects, in my view, an abundance of resume virtues, no doubt about that. Full professor, recognized author, Frank Sinton Milburn Outstanding Faculty Award, the Alumni Association's Strongest Influence Award, the Presidential Ambassador's Spark and Flame Award, the Norse Leadership Society Mentor Award, and the list goes on and on and on. But I have to tell you, as wonderful as these recognitions are, it's Russ's eulogy virtues that I want to focus on for a moment, because this is where I think Russ Proctor has few equals. I've never known a faculty member more committed to students than Russ Proctor. We all have vivid recollections of his orientation speech, which included his signature, let's hear it, That's right, I love NKU. It was cute. It was memorable. It was cute, it was memorable, but more important, he was telling students to connect with our campus, to love our campus, and most important, to believe in themselves and their capacity to accomplish great things. Those new students, and I remember this like it was yesterday, hung on every word that Russ Proctor offered. He energized them and he drew them to a higher level, I believe, of both self-confidence and commitment. This was his special gift and is his special gift. It seems to me that the concept of belief is right at the heart of teaching excellence. John Gardner once wrote, and I quote, "In leading, in teaching, in dealing with young people, in all relationships of influencing and directing, and guiding and helping and nurturing, the whole tone of the relationship will be conditioned by our faith in human possibilities." Our faith in human possibilities. That's the generative element, wrote Gardner, the source of the current that runs beneath the surface of these relationships. And there is a current that's part of that gift that connects a great professor with his or her students. Russ Proctor fundamentally believed in his students, and I believe that's where it all begins. And he communicated that belief in 1,000 different ways. He encouraged them, he corrected them, he challenged them, he counseled them, He lifted them, he learned from them, and he loved them, as every great teacher does. And in return, they loved him back. Look at the number of you, both current and former students, who are with us tonight to honor him and to say thank you for all that he contributed to your lives. At the heart of any university, I believe, is its faculty. It's the faculty who, in the most fundamental sense, are the custodians of campus values and culture. Russ Proctor has spent the last 25 years not only mentoring NKU students, but also mentoring a generation of faculty to embrace the qualities that define our campus, I believe, and the qualities that have defined his career. Russ, NKU owes you an enormous debt of gratitude. You've taught us what it means to be student-centered. You've taught us what it means to believe in students, to encourage students, and to go the extra mile on behalf of students. Your generosity of spirit has inspired all who have had the privilege of traveling this journey with you, and it's been an honor for us all. You loved us, and we hope that you can feel tonight how deeply that love is returned. So tonight we say thanks to you, Russ. We say thanks to Pam. Your partnership is so important. Your love affair is so important. And you are so important to what this man is and will continue to be. So tonight we say thank you. We love you both. A very special honor to be with you tonight to help celebrate this very special man. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm very disappointed there were no suggestions.
Our next speaker is the Dean at the University of Cincinnati Blue Ash, but was our former department chair here at Northern Kentucky University, Cady Short-Thompson.
Well, before I begin with the celebration and roast, I do want to say to Jim Votruba that when I started as dean, I had a college and a campus to run and a new convocation. And I'll never forget, I was very nervous because I was in charge. And for a minute, I started to panic, and then I thought, no. I grabbed the podium and I said, I am Jim Votruba. And did you notice how he has these great traits of repeating a phrase that's powerful? I do that. And I call out people's names. I do that. And they think I'm so good. Stolen from you. Exactly. He did. So I have to say, first of all, what a treat this is for me, to be here tonight with so many people I love, too. It feels a little like a wedding or my own reunion, so it's so nice of you to host this for me. I'm not kidding. I have never been hugged more in my life. It's fabulous. I'm serious. It's fantastic. It's like therapy. So I will tell you that for those of you who have not attended a number of faculty retirement parties, this is not typical. Right? Some don't get any party. They say they didn't choose it, but honestly, look around. It's remarkable. Typically, there's not a grand ballroom that is filled. Typically, there aren't this many people, and it is because you are atypical. You are special, and I have so many of the same themes as Jim Votruba shared with you this evening, because you are such an amazing, amazing person. The numbers, the relationships, and the stories that I'll share with you all paint a picture of a truly remarkable, talented, student-centered, personally engaging teacher, scholar, both, who arrived here 25 years ago and set down some of the deepest, gnarliest roots ever, right? His family and he arrived in 1991, and ever since then, the Proctor family, right? They have all become an important part of this university and of Northern Kentucky. And so let me first share some quick numbers. By my estimates, you have taught at least 6,000 students, at least, probably more, and you have taught them really well. Can I get an amen? And I also want to note that you also delivered how many of those orientation speakers and taught this university to truly love NKU. And think about the thousands of students who came through orientation. And I know that one of the important things that you have done among many is that you created a culture of love and respect for this university, which it craved. There was so much good going on here, and you gave it a name, along with you, by the way, mister. And honestly, there was so much love and respect that came from the way that you brought that love to NKU. So it's an important thing that you've done with the students and the alumni, literally from day one. From day one, you have done this. Russ encouraged his students to honor their alma mater, now and in the future. He taught them Norse pride. And once the students arrived in his classroom, you know, they never wanted to leave. As you know so well, they majored in Proctor. Thousands, right? True, isn't it? Thousands of students took all that he taught, interpersonal, advanced interpersonal, communication theories, interviewing, his graduate course that you taught, and more. So many different classes and taught so well. He is an NKU professorial legend who long ago established his prowess in the classroom. And as you know, he is truly an incredibly gifted, talented teacher. I would argue a virtuoso. And Russ has won so many awards because of that talent and that hard work, including the most prestigious award at NKU, the Frank Sinton Milburn Award, which recognizes teaching, research, and service. And I'll tell you this, he is what most of us call a triple threat. He does it all well, teaching, research, and service. And I can also tell you that triple threats are hard to find, and they're really hard to keep. And so for NKU to have kept you this long, so lucky, so fortunate for NKU. But for Russ, his excellence was not about him, it was about you. It was about all of you. It was about his students and his colleagues. And I can tell you from experience being down the hallway from him, he was always a student magnet, right? A student magnet that just came to him, lines of people. And he single-handedly recruited probably half of the communication majors. Unbelievable. He was very persistent in that regard. And so he has been the person who has also nominated most of students in this room for awards that you received, that you earned, because he wanted to celebrate and recognize you. That gift of time helped to establish you as confident professionals. You found that wind behind your backs. He has also advised how many people? Thousands of people. He's counseled them personally and professionally. He's cared for them, as you heard already tonight. He's written countless recommendation letters, and he has supported them every imaginable way. You know this. You lived this. But it happened uniquely from prospective students all the way through his classroom, through being an alumni of the university, and then think about how many of you are still in touch with him today. It is remarkable. Think about the fact that he read most of your names at commencement. For as long as I can remember, he read them well, he read them loudly, he has this great voice, and you felt celebrated on that day too. And not only did he read your names, he read them and pronounced them correctly. And he did that because he walked the halls before commencement and made sure that he wrote down your name phonetically on your card, and then he got it just right. And then all in the audience who were being recognized felt honored and respected by the correct pronunciation. Trust me, this matters. It matters. Who remembers when one of NKU's deans read the name Jesus Gonzalez? True story. And all of us, the faculty, cringed for Jesus and his family. So this matters. Do you remember? It's hysterical. So I'm going to start cracking up. So not only did Russ pronounce all of the names correctly, but he also high-fived and hugged and handshaked you all. He also gave out Smarties. So that day was a day of celebration for everyone who came across Russ's path. Russ has also made every step along the way better and more welcoming, celebratory, and personal for all of his students at NKU. Without a question, he's had impactful relational touch points from the very beginning, through the middle, and through being an alum of the great university that this is. And it hasn't ended with commencement. Surely, as you'll hear tonight from Kathy Renaker, who is next, Graduates have been eager to return to tell stories of their success, to share their business cards to put on his bulletin board, and to just be loved by him because he is that special in relationship with his students and graduates. I know others here have lunch with him regularly and still seek his counsel all these years later. That is not typical. It is special. And he has been a steadfast, consistent force in this Department of Communication. Unlike so many of us, he has been a remarkably stable and consistent professor in his many contributions. What I mean by that is, as so many of us have sought change and new courses or new committees or new projects or new leadership positions, he has stayed the course and he has taught his classes time and again with incredible, incredible outcomes. And I will tell you, this man loves routine, right? So Tuesday and Thursday, 9 o'clock, we are opposites. That never happened in my schedule, but he loved routine and he nailed his routine. I will also say that this is high praise because for anyone who works with faculty, you can set your watch by Russ Proctor, and there's something wonderfully assuring about the fact that you know what Russ will do and how we will continue to contribute to the university and the college. And not surprisingly, all of these relationships that are represented here tonight, he's nurtured these relationships over the year very carefully using his expertise in interpersonal communication. Talk to any of the 300 or more people who are here tonight or the thousands of people on Facebook. We all love you. And we all love the fact that you remember us and you give us Smarties and you celebrate our successes like they're your own. But if they're honest about their feelings and using the communication competence that you taught them, they'll explain that you changed their lives. The way that they see themselves in this world is different. Their relationships with others are better. And most of all, how you empowered them to be better than they ever imagined. And some of them graduated with one goal, to be you. To go on and pursue doctorates and become you, because you're that good. And you inspired them to become an outstanding professor, just like what they experienced in your classroom. And not just the students, you have been that force for the faculty colleagues that you have had across the years. You have been our Yoda in the department. Proctor has mentored many faculty members over the years, seemingly most of the faculty in the department. And I can say with certainty that he was certainly one of my strongest mentors. I arrived here at NKU in 1997. I was 27 years old, and boy, was I green. I needed to learn a lot, and I will say that little by little, Russ built into me. He shared his ideas and his experiences. He counseled me on striking just the right balance in my professorial career. He was a key influence without question in my professional growth. He praised me where I performed well and offered advice and constructive criticism where I needed to grow. And I will say that is a gift and sometimes hard to deliver. But I will say this, when someone tells you something you need to know and improve upon it, listen. That is a gift. But our relationship quickly became one of give and take, a real friendship. My favorite memories at NKU over those 14 years have Proctor in them. NLS retreats, faculty meetings, convocation, banquets, and lunchroom conversations. But my very favorite moments were those everyday moments where we closed the door in his office and just shared what was going on in our classes and in our lives. I must say that I fondly remember sitting down and just talking with you and laughing, and I mean laughing until he wheezed, laughing until he snorted, laughing until he choked. I mean laughing until some days he fell out of his chair onto the ground laughing. You get the point. We laughed so hard and so often together. It was awesome. And then when I served as chair of his department, one of my favorite things to do was to email him, and in the signature line I would say, "The boss of you." And he would return an email that would in smaller font say, "You are not the boss of me." Do you remember that? start cracking up. So those not so professional, but professional conversations and emails led the way to our lasting friendship. Frankly, it was a friendship that many didn't quite understand. First of all, we are really different. But secondly, people are sometimes slow to accept that men and women can just be friends. So on occasion, we would hear rumors that folks thought that we were romantically involved. And upon hearing it, we would look at each other, wrinkle our nose, and go, gross. Right? And so one story that didn't help us to dissuade those rumors that we were just friends is one of my favorites. In 2004, I was on sabbatical leave doing presidential campaign research. And I was excited to see you and update you on my sabbatical and other news, and that is that Steve and I were expecting our third child. So we met at Don Pablo's in Covington, and I was eager to share the big news. And so about first thing out of my mouth, I said, "You're not going to believe it, but I'm pregnant." And it was quiet suddenly, and he reached over, as Russ would do, and he grabbed my hands like, and at that moment of, I'm pregnant, and we looked to our left, and there was an entire table of NKU people. It was awesome. And do you remember? It was so funny. So at that moment, he went, fun for me. Okay, and so I will. So you see, we were close, but like siblings. And I will say that this earnest big brother of mine and the whimsical, bratty little sister were so different, but we share so many of the same values. And we are both immensely committed to both our work and to our families. This quirky but strong relationship led us to become the perfect traveling buddies with our spouses, and here is how it began. In 2006, we're in the lunchroom and landroom, as usual, and he was sharing that it was their 25th anniversary coming up, and that he and Pam planned to go to Italy. And quickly and jealously, I replied, "Ooh, I want to go." And he replied, "Are you serious? That would be fun to travel with Steve and you." And I replied, "Yeah, I'm serious." He said, "I think I should check with Pam." I said, "Okay." And he said, "And you should probably check with Steve." And I said, "Oh, he'll want to go." Right? Within a day, it was decided. We would crash their anniversary trip. And so we began our epic adventures, an every 3-year European tradition where we travel, and I will tell you it is easily the greatest highlight of our lives. We have traveled to Italy together in 2007, Greece in 2010, France in 2013, and in under a month, we head to the Amalfi Coast in Italy together. Can't wait. Ironically, this trip falls on the same year as our 25th anniversary, so you're crashing it, right? All good. Yay! As I said, we're a lot alike in many ways, but really different, and we've made perfect travel companions. He is, however, so much more organized than I am, and he loves to plan in advance. And I will say he's so good at it that we've nicknamed him TripAdvisor, or Trippy for short. And thanks to him, honestly, our trips have been perfect. In fact, he's so organized that he wants to buy our plane tickets like 3 years in advance, and I push him to wait until the prices drop. And thankfully, every time they have. I will say that in terms of packing, it's comical. He packs 2 pairs of shoes and 13 of the same shirts, and I pack everything in my closet. We are very dissimilar. He's always early. I practically arrive as they yell final boarding. They like to shop. We don't. We love art galleries. They don't. We like to hike until it's painful. You don't. However, somehow, it works, doesn't it? And we go apart during the day and have the most incredible adventures, and every evening we gather together and share what we saw in that city. It is the best possible situation. Couldn't ask for better travel partners or dear friends than Russ and Pam. And while most of the stories would not translate well from our trips, or certainly are not retirement party approved, here are a few funny stories that I will never forget. I'll never forget the perfect dinner that we had in Tuscany, a dinner where, without exaggeration, this B&B owner had set up the most perfect evening. He had olives from his olive grove. He had wine from his vineyard. He had vegetables from his garden. He had steak from his cattle. And as we were seated at the table in their dining room, we could literally see the family, the grandmother making the pasta, the child playing the violin for us. It was a lot to take in. And I will say that there was a moment where we all realized this is perhaps the most perfect moment we've ever seen. So Russ started to cry. Which made me laugh, and and we were like, dude, are you crying? But it was perfect, and so yeah, it's worth crying over. Or another day where we were on a train and Russ was nearly pickpocketed, and he went all Chuck Norris on this guy. And I started laughing as soon as I knew you were okay. Or perhaps the day that we visited the Sistine Chapel. And I'll never forget the security person who just kept screaming at the top of his lungs, "No photo, no pictures, no talking, silencio," which of course made us laugh hysterically until we were wheezing and had to leave. It was quite amusing. Or certainly you'll remember driving around and around Pisa and having the hardest time finding that enormous and famous Leaning Tower. It seems so ridiculous, didn't it? And finally, the silliest moment of all, when the four of us were in the smallest elevator in the world, and you were inches from my face, and I grabbed your nose like I would a small child and said, "Got your nose?" And you very seriously replied, "You do not have my nose." It was hilarious. Do you remember? So as much, come here. As much as we have loved the trips themselves, the planning and the anticipation over the years have been almost as much fun as the journeys themselves. And the journey of our friendship, oh my goodness, weaving together work and our home lives that we love so much, the journey with you has been the greatest gift of all. And so while you wrap up your time here at NKU, this marvelous place, your brilliant career as a leading global prominent textbook author will continue with greater doses of all the other things that you love. Your family, your friends, baseball, and travel. As for Pam, no one I know loves his wife as dearly as he does. You're good, but oh my goodness. I'm not kidding, it's a high bar. She's not just Pam, her name is Pam. Extra M's. And lucky Pam and their amazing sons and daughter-in-law, they'll have more time with this special man. Now, being your bratty little sister who would much rather tease you or hack on you, I think this is about all the niceness I can muster for the night, but I meant every word of it. I think you're simply amazing. I love you. And so here's to you, one of NKU's best professors, I'm going to say ever, best mentors, best friends, and the best brother I could ever wish for. Cheers to Proctor. Hear, hear.
So I'm going to take point of privilege. She came and did that on her birthday.
For our next speaker, we have a gift presentation by our provost, Suat Rollins, and our dean, Kevin Kirby. Come on up. And Russ, can you also come up? Russ? You can come up too.
Well, Jim, I was actually on the math faculty when you visited campus. Hello, communication. Hello, Dr. Proctor. Nice to be at the podium after you again, just like old times. Excuse my voice, in the College of Informatics. So occasionally, rarely, you'll come across someone who so embodies the essence, the quintessence of something good, the platonic form of something good, that captures the heart of an institution. And it's a privilege to be here on this podium at this moment. And Russ really is that. It's not cylinders of colored sugar discs. It's the interplay of inspiration and memory and hope that Russ is. And all of us who've been around him in the shiny new building, the stinking, crappy old building, have been very, very inspired by you. And it is an honor for me as dean of this unusual and blessed College of Informatics to have a moment to be here at the moment of your emeritization. And I want to say thank you for inspiring all of us, and it's an honor to be here, and congratulations. So.
Russ, I'm Sue Ott-Rollins, provost here at NKU. I feel like I haven't done much in my life. But I'm certainly glad you have. Congratulations. This is the proverbial watch, really.
Wow, this is great. Where's Kathy Renaker? Oh, you're back there. I was wondering, I know you're still here. So Kathy Renaker, adjunct instructor in the Department of Communication, is our next speaker. So come on down. Oh, RP's next. Sorry. Okay, RP. Sorry. RP Proctor, Russ's son, will be our next speaker. Come on.
How y'all doing? So before I get started with my speech tonight, let's just get something straight. I have to follow the Dean of UC Blue Ash and one of the most influential women in all of Cincinnati, Dr. James Votruba, one of the greatest presidents NKU has ever seen, and now present to a few hundred of the greatest communicators on planet Earth. Glad we could combine all my nightmares into one room together at the same time like that. Just fantastic. Love that. Of course, you probably already know I am totally kidding. I am an NKU speech communication major and Dr. Proctor's son. I was born for this moment, all right? I was made for this. Just gotta call it what it is. So, I won't lie. It actually was surprisingly tough to actually put this speech together. Because in case you don't know this, my dad, for the last 25 years, has stolen all of my good stories and used them in his class. Anything that happened at a Reds game, oh, that was funny. Class material. Oh, my brother and I were fighting. Class material. And so as a result, I was left with the scraps to pick up and try to put something together. And I just didn't really know which direction should I go. Should I be really funny and make you all laugh? Should I make you cry? Should I make you feel really bad? Should I talk about him as my dad? Should I talk about him as a professor? I didn't really know where to go. So I'm going to kind of weave in and out on this. But let's just start with the obvious. Can we all agree? Amazing professor. Can we agree on that? Just one of the best, all right? From Smarties to NLS retreats, to orientation, to his Who Wants the Ball speech. He's awesome, and we can all agree he's hilarious, right? Very, very funny. Or as one of his evals famously said about him, Dr. Proctor's such a nice guy, but man, he just thinks he's so damn funny. And to that, my dad responded, yeah, that sounds about right. I loved that response from him. And I think that's him in a nutshell. Always willing to laugh and go with the flow. He's inclusive. He cares about people. It shines through in his actions. Let's be clear. You don't win Professor of the Year at NKU unless you have that it factor, and he clearly has it. But the truth for me is, when I think about my dad, when I think about Dr. Proctor, I don't think about him necessarily as a professor. For me, there's a story that kind of would be the through line for my talk tonight. And it's something that happened to me when I was a little kid. When I was a small child, we used to go on road trips to visit relatives and get back late at night. And I remember one time driving back really late at night, and we were just in the middle of nowhere. And my mom was up front, asleep in the front seat. My brother was next to me in the back seat, fast asleep, and so it was just me and my dad. And we're hanging out, and we're driving along, and we got to this little red light in the middle of nowhere, and for some reason, in the middle of this cornfield, above the light, it said, no turn on red. And it is somewhere, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there is nowhere as far as the eye can see. And so I just kind of leaned forward, and I said, Dad, why don't you go? And my dad turned and looked at me. He said, son, character is what you do when nobody is looking. And I just want to let you all know something. Dad, when you thought nobody else was looking, I was. So, I want to share with you all who Dr. Proctor was when you all weren't looking as two things. One, as a professor, and two, as a dad. So let's start with professor. I saw my dad spend countless hours poring over student papers. Can I be clear to you in this room if you had him in class? He never mailed it in on a single one of your papers. Never. Never did that. Because when nobody was looking, my dad made sure to give it his best. Not only that, I saw my dad spend the day cleaning the house, often his poor sons as well, preparing for many students coming over for speech club parties and events. Because when you weren't looking, he was preparing for you. Not only that, I saw a professor who graded by social security number. Who does that? He does that because he wanted to make sure that he was fair to you when nobody was looking. Can I be very clear on this? Either way, you got what you deserved. If you were complaining about your grade, there is no doubt you earned every bit of it. No doubt about it. And now let me show the good side of this. For most of you here, you're probably students who really like Dr. Proctor. All right? This means if you got a good grade in his class, you cherished it. You went, darn right, and I earned every bit of that. My dad, the professor, when nobody was looking, he was honorable, he was fair, and we can only hope that more professors would follow this model. But if I stopped here, I would only have told half the story. Because I think if you know Dr. Proctor, especially as a student, you know him not just as a professor, but you know him as Dr. Proctor, the father figure. You know him as a man who's been a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, and a voice of wisdom when you really needed it. I'll play an interaction game here, okay? Show of hands. How many of you in this room would consider my dad in some way a father figure in your life? Show of hands. Dad, look around the room. Stand up. Just look for a second. You can put your hands down. This speaks volumes to the character of Russ Proctor, that he has all these extra kids here in his room. But on my theme of what character is when nobody is looking, I want to share with you all who my dad was as a father to me when you all weren't looking. Let's start with the easy ones. My dad involved me in everything and anything NKU from a very young age. He took my brother and I to NKU games, including road trips, often getting multiple speeding tickets along the way as his boy slept quietly in the back seat. I remember multiple occasions of waking up to sirens as we were pulled over on the side of the road. I was looking. So, not only that, My father allowed us to be part of the speech club parties from a very early age. If you were a student in the 90s or early 2000s, you were probably pretty sick of us. I'm just going to be honest, because we were at everything. But you know why we were? Because my dad loved his sons. And he said, if you're going to be part of my life, you got to get to know my sons because they're part of my life. And he wasn't going to push them to the side. They were going to be included, and that meant the world to us. If that wasn't enough, my dad coached my Little League team. He was at almost every single practice or game. And when I wasn't playing, he was out shooting baskets with me or playing catch. He was involved with NKU and his students, but he always had time for his family. He was home every day when I came home from school. We ate dinner as a family every single night. Who does that? The Proctor family does that. That's who. Teenage years come around, and my dad developed something known as Boys Weekend, where we took a 3-day trip out of town to follow the Reds and be men. Our motto was eat like men, talk like men, and scratch like men. And can I just be clear? My dad started this because he wanted us to know that he was there for us and he wanted to connect with us. While on these trips, he encouraged unhealthy eating, manly jokes, thank you, Doug and Todd, for those manly jokes, and often more gas than any of us knew to do with. Our windows were permanently on roll down. But the beautiful thing was, amid the toxic fumes in our car, we could see our dad smiling and letting us know that, hey, he cared about us. And this formed very deep connections and formations of a lifelong bond between father and sons. And of course, how can I leave out the Reds? I spent so much time at Reds games growing up, I felt like Riverfront Stadium was my second home. I remember at one time, we went to all 9 games on a homestand. We went to a week and a half of baseball straight. Who does that? My dad and I did. Seriously, we had problems, but we went to a lot of baseball and we loved it. We loved it, we loved it, we loved it. And my greatest gift was, as a result of all these things, my dad taught me how to be open with my emotions. I can freely talk about my feelings because I had a dad who was there, involved, and caring for me from day one. Can I be very clear? There is no replacement for time spent with your sons, talking with them and being there for them. There's nothing that compares to that. And even though he was a dad to you all too, never once did he deprive me. Never once. Because when no one was looking, he said, I need to be a good dad too. It's been interesting to me. Over the last year, I've done a lot of personal development on my own. And one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to learn about great leaders of our time. And there were 2 I really couldn't wait to read. Steve Jobs with Apple, and then Elon Musk with Tesla. Because I really look up to them and what they've done. I couldn't wait to read about them. And I read their books, and when I got done, I had 2 different thoughts. 1, I went, cool what they did. They've done a lot of great things. And 2, I said, it's really a shame that they dropped the ball when it came to their family. It's really a shame. I said, everybody can exalt these leaders all they want about, man, they were great, but I'm sorry, you have one first important job. That's your family. Everything else comes second to that. And I look at... Sorry, I work with inner city kids for a living, so this is like a passion for me. And so I guess when you look at my dad, we talk about all these things. Hey, professor of the year, best-selling textbook author. But the thing you really need to say is, okay, but what about his family? I mean, I bet his sons hate him. No, I talk to my dad literally every day on the phone. Well, what about Randy? Yeah, Randy's over in Europe, and my dad and my brother across the world are texting each other and emailing every single day. Who does that? I mean, we do that. Because our bond is incredible. Well, yeah, sure he has a great relationship with his sons, but what about his wife? Really? Ever met my parents? All right, it is nauseating how much my parents love each other, all right? Can I just say to you all, oh, isn't it adorable? Try living with it every single day, man, all right? It gets old, all right? No, it does not get old, all right? It is the greatest marriage that I've ever seen, and I love that I've gotten to witness that. Well, I'm sure he overworks. No, he always has time for people. He never makes you feel too little for him to talk to. And I guess at the end of the day, obviously we're celebrating my dad as a professor, but I think we should be celebrating so much more. You know, he's a father to many of you. He's a mentor to many of you. And he's just a darn good man, even when you all weren't looking. But luckily, I was. And we celebrate Dr. Proctor retiring as a professor at NKU, but he's not really retiring. He's still a mentor, he's still a role model, and he's a father to many people. And I'm so glad that I've gotten to share him with you all. Because I got to just be very clear. The guy you got to know, that's who I got to know too. There's no difference. He's the same through and through. And that's a testament to who he is. I didn't quite know how to end this speech. You know, should I close with some really good joke? Should I make everybody cry? But then I realized the ending of the speech was never really in doubt. After all these years of teaching, I just think one thing is really clear. Hey, Dad, you got the ball.
Deep breaths. This is pretty hard to transition now. Kathy, come on up.
Seriously, RP? I thought we were siblings. Huh. Pastel-colored, pressed dextrose tablets in assorted flavors, wrapped in a colorful twist wrap. Multiple sizes available, ranging from the original 5.5 ounce to the ever-coveted Mondo Smartie. Who knew having Smarties candies literally thrown at our faces would be so important and would provide such moments of pride and accomplishment? Of course, it was never really about the candy. It was about the man who was throwing the candy to us and praising us for our correct answers, our poignant responses, and sometimes just for sharing mundane news from our lives. As a former student of Dr. Proctor's, I represent all of you here today whose lives were forever changed by this remarkable educator. How in the world does one develop a tribute speech for Dr. Proctor? Really? How could I possibly find any words that are good enough and powerful enough and descriptive enough to convey the impact this man has had on our lives? This teacher, this educational God. He deserves the most spectacular, the most out-of-this-world send-off, and I fear whatever I say tonight could not possibly do it justice. But you know, I'm willing to give it a whirl. I'm honored to have this opportunity to pay homage to our beloved Dr. Proctor, or P-Dog, as my husband likes to call him. We, the students of Dr. Proctor, I'm speaking to all of you, hit the jackpot on teachers. Our lives were forever blessed by this incredible professor who left us with indelible knowledge about communication, wonderful memories and stories from both inside and outside the classroom. I met Dr. Proctor inside the classroom as a student in his interpersonal communication class. It was the early 90s, and I was a young whippersnapper with no real clue about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And there I sat, in speech 220, not realizing that my life was about to change. The moment Dr. Proctor told us about dialectics, and he used his famous phrase, "Both can be true at the same time," I knew. I was hooked. I knew at that moment I wanted to be a speech communication major, and my life's passion would to live and study and work within the communication field. As a teacher, Dr. Proctor had high expectations. He absolutely asked the most of us, and we wanted to meet those expectations. He demanded excellence from all of us, and to disappoint him, from being late to class, and by the way, we all know that 10 minutes early is on time, and on time is late. To disappoint him by being late to class or by not having an assignment ready was devastating. His tests were never easy, his assignments required hard work, and his uncanny ability to find grammatical errors in what I was absolutely sure was the perfect paragraph was annoying. But if we worked hard and gave 110%, we were rewarded. We were rewarded with brilliantly illustrated stories and examples. For example, Pam, we know you kicked the pan across the kitchen floor. We all know. And we were rewarded with Smarties. Smarties were Dr. Proctor's signature. They were his shtick. Dr. P decided if a student's comment or contribution was Smartie worthy. And Dr. P decided if it was time to open his black briefcase and pull out a roll of Smarties, if they were well-deserved. Of course, there was that one moment, that one time when I was a student, when let's just say I might have been a little too big for my britches. In one particular class, I believed a classmate made a comment so profound, so amazing that he deserved a Smartie. And not just a regular Smartie. This one deserved the Mondo Smartie. That's when I made a critical error in judgment. You see, Dr. Proctor didn't go to his briefcase, and he didn't give a Smartie to this student. Dr. Proctor was moving on with his material. So I foolishly stood. I walked over to his briefcase. I opened his briefcase, and I pulled out a Mondo Smartie, and I gave it to the deserving student. I can't really say I remember the next few minutes after that. It's a bit foggy. I've kind of blocked it out from my memory. I do know that one should never, ever attempt to steal the Smartie power from Dr. Proctor. Ever. And I have no idea why he's actually still speaking to me today, and how in the world I was chosen to give this tribute speech is beyond me. And while his outstanding qualities as a professor of communication were forever evident inside the classroom, Dr. Proctor made an equal impact outside of the classroom as well. By show of hands, How many people met with Dr. Proctor in either his Landrum or his Griffin Hall office? How many attended a communication club, a presidential ambassadors, an NLS, an alumni association banquet, or a retreat with Dr. Proctor? How many of you received awards at one of those events? How many of you had Dr. Proctor sit and watch you get a tattoo at one of those events? It's a smaller crowd, but it's out there, okay? Oh, I remember. How many have been to a social event with Dr. Proctor, like gone to Skyline Tavern, sat at BW3's, Applebee's, perhaps went to a wedding, maybe it's your wedding, gone to a Reds game or some social event? How many asked Dr. Proctor to be a reference for your internship or job? How many had Dr. P rock your babies and meet your children? What do all of these have in common? All of these happened outside the classroom. Dr. Proctor wasn't just an awesome professor. He was and is a true mentor and a friend. Dr. Proctor dedicated his life to his students. Our happiness became his happiness. Our sadness became his sadness. And our successes became his trophies, validating his job well done, because we never could have done any of it without him. Dr. Proctor, look around. Look at the lives you have touched. Look at these wonderful stories that you have helped build. Seriously, I feel compelled right now to make everyone stand on their chair and say, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." I was trying to figure out a way to put that into my speech, so I had to work it in. In conclusion. So I had to use an official public speaking in conclusion, because this is being videotaped, and I teach public speaking and advanced public speaking, and I plan to show this to my students so they can completely critique me on special occasion speeches. So, in conclusion, Dr. Proctor has had such a profound effect on the lives of his students, both inside and outside the classroom. It's impossible to find words of appreciation good enough to celebrate this amazing man. Dr. P, my friend, my teacher, my mentor, my colleague, my life director, and my dad. Thank you. From all of us, thank you for your service and dedication to your students. And now I'd like to attempt something a little risky. The last time I attempted to give away a Mondo Smartie, it didn't go so well. But I'm an old whippersnapper now, and I think I could do a better job this round. Dr. Proctor, could you please come forward and assume the ceremonial position? Dr. Proctor, we, your former students, your proctoids, we bestow upon you this Mondo Smartie in appreciation for all you have done for us, for all you have taught us, and for changing our lives for the better. I love you, and congratulations.
tell you that I'm speechless, but you all know better than that. But I am deeply, deeply moved. I cried all day today. And I cried so many times tonight. I'm so touched by your graciousness and your kindness. I'm particularly grateful to Zach Hart for putting this together. He knew that this reception would mean so much to me, and it does. So thank you. And I'm thankful for the guest speakers who spoke on my behalf today. Some people are asking me earlier on, why those four? And I'll tell you, you got to hear from my big brother Jim, my sister Cady, my son RP, and my daughter Kathy. They are family, and you know what? You are too. This is a family reunion, and I'm so glad you were here for it tonight. People have been asking me about this retirement, and I've been telling them recently that there are ways in which it does indeed feel like I've been here for a quarter of a century. The fact that we're sitting in a room right now, that in a building that didn't exist when I came here in 1991 tells me that we've been at this for a while. The fact that it's named after a couple of people that we didn't even know in 1991 tells us we've been at this a while too. The fact that I now have my offices and teach all of my classes in Griffin Hall, which was just a parking lot when I got here in 1991. Come on, veterans, how many of you tonight came onto campus and said something to the effect of, boy, this place sure is different from when I went here. And where the hell do I park? How many of you? I heard you all saying it. So there are ways in which we've been at this for a long time, but there are other ways in which it feels like I just got here. It feels like we just got this started, and I was trying to figure out why is that. And I think one of the reasons for that is because every semester in my interviewing class, I tell the story of how I landed here. And because of that, it's always fresh in my mind, and it never seems that long ago, and it's always quick to my memory. And so if you'll humor me, and you really have no choice, but if you'll humor me, I'd like to tell you a version of that story today, because I can't think of any better way to end this chapter of my life than to tell you about its beginning. In the fall of 1990, I was finishing up my doctoral dissertation. And at that point in time, the job search was now beginning. And just so you know, in academia, you don't get the privilege of saying, oh, I want to teach at that college and university, go knock on their door and say, I'm here. That if they don't have an opening at that college and university, you're not going to teach there. And if they don't have an opening at that college and university in your field, then you're not going to teach there. And if they don't have an opening at that college and university in your field, in your specialty, then you're not going to teach there. And so that ends up really narrowing the field. And what I began doing in the fall of 1990 was standing by my mailbox at our apartment every day, every week, waiting for the Chronicle of Higher Education to show up and for the Spectra newsletter to show up, and opening it, having this certain excitement about, okay, who's going to hire me? Where am I going to land? Where will I spend my life? October turned to November, and November turned to December, and December turned to 1991, and those ads weren't turning out all of the things that I was hoping for, because we had set some goals. Pam and I decided, before we go into this, let's set some goals. If you don't have a target, you won't hit it. If you don't have a goal, you won't achieve it. So we decided to set some goals for what we were looking for. And two things were very important to us. The first was that I had taught at a couple of small private liberal arts colleges in suburban Chicago, and those were perfect matches for what I wanted to do. So we put that very high on the list. And we also were very concerned about location. Now, just to map this out here, I grew up in Detroit, Pam grew up in Fort Wayne, we met, married, and had children in Chicago, and all of our family was in this narrow little oval between Detroit and Chicago. And we said, so what I want to do is I want to teach at a small, private, liberal arts college somewhere in this narrow oval between Detroit and Chicago. I don't know how many of you have noticed that I'm standing in front of you at a mid-sized state university in freaking Kentucky. And so you might think, well, Proctor, sounds like you missed your mark. To which I would say yes and no, and that's the beauty of the story. So I ended up putting out resumes everywhere because that narrow little thing got bigger and bigger and bigger as I wasn't getting callbacks and I wasn't getting opportunities, and I was seeing that I just had to widen my scope here. And it got pretty big, and I was littering the academic universe with my CV everywhere it could go. And now we were starting to get a little bit nervous, and it was March 1st of 1991. I was at Bowling Green State University, also known as Hell, and I was at the library working on my doctoral dissertation, and I came home that day, and there was a note Pam had written on the blackboard that said, Gaunt Ragsdale from Northern Kentucky University has called and would like to have a phone interview with you. And I need to give you my honest response. I said, Northern Kentucky University, which one's that? Because quite literally I had applied to more than 100 schools and I couldn't quite remember. So I went and dug out my old ad for it, and Northern Kentucky University, Northern Kentucky, that's got to be Louisville, right? No, Highland Heights. Now, folks, you have to remember, there's no internet, there's no Google Maps, there's no GPS. I went out to my car, got an atlas, opened it up, and said, Highland Heights, near Cincinnati. Okay, sure. And I went back down to Bowling Green State University, went into the library because I was going to do my homework, and I went to the microfiche microform department. Can anyone help me on this? Who remembers what microfiche? And I got out a microfiche that they had there, an old catalog, must have been 5 or 6 years outdated, of Northern Kentucky University, and I pored over this little thing. It didn't offer me all that much helpful information. I had the phone interview. It went successfully. They invited me to campus. And I drove down to Highland Heights, Kentucky. And I went on that car ride, and I need to be perfectly honest with you, I went without a great deal of excitement. Excited that I was getting a job opportunity, but I was going to a state university. And I knew what state universities were about, or at least I thought I did. I was getting my doctorate at one right then. I knew what state universities were about. They were about huge lecture halls filled with 500, 600, 800, 1,000 people in them. I had guest lectured in one the semester before and was scared to death looking at all of these students there and thinking, this is higher education. And state universities were places that privileged research over teaching. State universities were places where graduate students taught the undergrads to get them out of the way of the professors who had better things to do with graduate students and research. And while I understand that those institutions have a place in higher education, that is not what I wanted to be about. So I was going to a state university, and I pulled onto campus, and I saw the concrete jungle. And I said, oh my goodness, am I selling my soul? What am I doing here? So I had gotten there early, no surprise. I went walking up and down the hallways of Landrum Hall, and I looked into the classrooms, and I saw classes that were capped at what appeared to be 25 students. I saw them being taught by what didn't appear to be graduate students, but very dignified professors and instructors, and I said, that's unusual. And then at the beginning of the interview process, they ended up giving me a campus tour. Karen Slaughter gave me that tour. Karen, are you here tonight? Karen, where's Karen? Wave to me, Karen. Okay. Karen Slaughter gave me the campus tour. And when we got out onto the plaza, it's, this is a little homier here. And people were passing her by and saying, "Hi, Miss Slaughter," and she was saying, "Hi, Kevin, how you doing?" It's like, oh, she knows their names. They know her name. Pretty cool. We went across the campus and we went into the University Center and we peered into what is now called the Budding Theater. And I said to her somewhat smugly, I said, "So is this one of your small lecture halls?" And she said, "Actually, this is just for student events. We just do performances here, but quite honestly, it's one of the larger seating capacities here on campus." And I said, "Really?" I said, "So how much do they pay for tuition here?" And when she told me the amount, I laughed out loud at how low it was. And it was about at that moment that Wayne's World started kicking in. Do you all remember Wayne's World? And I started going, oh my goodness, this is not computing. This sounds to me, and maybe I didn't use these exact words, but this sounds to me like they're getting a private school education at a public school cost. Mind blown. And I went back to the interview session. I watched faculty members who seemed to really actually like each other. That was not the cutthroat environment I was used to. I watched them talking about their students. I watched them talking about a banquet they were getting ready to throw in honor of their students. And I had to reorganize everything. I had to shift my paradigm. I had to get outside my box. I had to reorder everything that I thought. And I pitched really hard because I thought, I want to be here. And we took a break in the interview process. And I went over to a payphone. Yes, we had payphones. In a corner next to the elevator in first floor Landrum. And I tucked myself into the corner. And I dialed up my wife. And Pam said, "How's the interview going?" And I said, "I have found the place I want to spend the rest of my career." And I knew at that moment what I know right now. I found home. I found home. And it's just too cool to be standing here, knowing that prophecy came to pass and knowing how that finished. Now let me harsh the mellow for just a second here and tell you that when I ended up coming here that fall, I found out that this vision I had for this university, this private school education at a public school cost, was not necessarily shared by the students. I got here and I heard students talking about this place like it was a leftover. It's like where they got stuck. It's where they ended up. It wasn't their first choice. And there seemed to be a real self-image problem here. There seemed to be an inferiority complex here. I even heard people use a phrase, which gratefully I don't hear anymore. They would say to me, "Well, you know, NKU stands for No Knowledge College." And I thought, first of all, you don't spell well. And secondly, why would you even think that, let alone say that? Don't you understand what a gold mine you have? Don't you understand how special this is? And I think they didn't. And I made it my mission that it was time to turn this thing around. It was time to be proud of black and gold. It was time to have Norse Nation. It was time to understand the privilege it was to be here. And this is where I need to give a shout out. And folks, I can't give shout outs to everyone here. I'm looking at your faces. I have stories for every one of you. But I do have to give one shout out. It's one thing for me to walk in the door and have that dream and vision. It's another thing to have early adopters, that somebody has to buy in. Somebody has to be ready to get on the train. And I had the very good fortune in my first semester to have two young men in my classes who were very vocal in the classes. That was not the problem. but they also started coming and meeting with me before class. And they started meeting with me after class. And they started meeting with me in the hallways. And they started meeting at my office. And they started becoming that private school education here at this state university. Soon we were having lunches, and soon they were inviting me to their organizational events. And soon they were coming in my office and saying, we got this crazy idea of holding a retreat down in Gatlinburg for the Norris Leadership Society. Would you be interested in being one of our first speakers? And I said, giddy up. Let's go. Let's go. And at that retreat, I talked to a couple of other students, I see you, Stephanie, and talked with them about maybe it's time we formed a speech communication club. And I told this to those two young men, and they said, we know how to charter an organization. We know how to draw up a constitution. Let's get this thing rolling. And they were founding members of the Speech Communication Club. They were very kind to put me up for a couple of awards before they left. After they became alums, called me up and said, hey, let's watch the Super Bowl together. And they brought a six-pack over to my little Horizon Hill Court house, and we watched the Super Bowl together. And they said, wouldn't it be cool if we did this every year with the alums? This will be a smaller number, but how many of you have ever been to a Super Bowl party? Oh, a bigger number than I may have thought. And then they said, how about we come back and speak in your classes? And they ended up coming to my small group communication course for years. How many of you remember team building exercises where you risked life and limb? Anybody remember that? Okay, we've got a few who were there. I just want to give a very special shout out to a couple of guys who were there at the front end. And if you've enjoyed all of those things we've talked about, you can be grateful for the foundation that they laid. Please stand and be recognized. Todd Kearns and Doug Rabe. Thanks, guys. You're special to me. Well, I could do this shout-out thing all night, but I know you need to get home. I'm going to end by showing you a shout-out. I had a very wonderful privilege in 1997 of being named the Frank Sinton Milburn Outstanding Professor. I found out about it at a communication banquet. It was one of the best moments of my life. And later that year, I got to receive that award at the annual convocation that NKU holds over in Greaves Hall. I should note, by the way, that was the first year that it was endowed as the Frank Sinton Milburn Award. It was the Milburn Award. That's important. Keep that in the back pocket. Hold that memory there. So I received the Milburn Award, and I was allowed the opportunity to say a few words about that. And you're going to get to see one of the best moments of my life. Please know that it's a grainy tape. I dubbed this from VHS to DVD to MP4. And actually, the VHS tape busts right at the end, but not before. There's kind of a funny moment that you have to wait for, okay? So keep it running until then. But up until that funny moment, I want you to know that this was one of the best moments of my life. And the shout out I gave that day is as true today as it was when I gave it. Roll the video, if you will, please.
Andy Warhol said we were all going to get 15 minutes. I've been told I get 3. I want to use those 3 minutes to say that I can't imagine any honor that would be higher than the one I'm receiving today. But I could not accept it without thanking 3 groups of people who've made this award possible. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my students. I've been telling them for the last few months since I heard about this award that there's no such thing as an outstanding professor without outstanding students. And I would put our best and brightest up against anyone's. I see several of them here this morning to join me in this celebration, and several more are going to be joining us tonight at a party we're having at our house in their honor, because truly they're the ones who make this possible. And I want to tell them, those who are here this morning and those who will be watching on videotape tonight at the party, that I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I love you. Second, I'd like to thank you, my fellow faculty members here at NKU. I work with a terrific, terrific group of people. In particular, I'd like to thank the members of the Department of Communication, and more specifically, two people who have been real mentors to me since I've been here, Dr. Gart Ragsdale and Dr. Stephen Boyd, who shepherded me along the way and befriended me. I wouldn't be standing here today without their support. And finally, I knew this would be hard. In 1982, I was working in a foundry. I got up at 5:30 every morning and put on overalls and donned a hard hat. My students always think that's a very funny picture. But I had a dream that I was going to be a professor one day, and I told my fiancée at that time about my dream, and she married me anyway. That fall, as my wife, she started me down the road to my master's. A few years later, I told her that to continue the dream, I was going to need to get a PhD, and without one moment of halting, she helped load the kids in the moving van, 2 small children, and supported me through the PhD. I remember telling her at that time that if I was ever so lucky to win an award, it would be ours, not mine. She continues that support. Every one of my students knows Pam by name. They've all been in my home. We've been to their weddings. Several of them have been interned under Pam, and I think most of them who know her love her more than me. And that's because they have good taste. I want to say this morning that I accept this award only in as much as I dedicate it to my precious and loving wife, Pam. It's not mine, it's ours. I love you.
If there's any more powerful testament to what this university is about, it's what we just heard from Professor Milburn. Thank you. I want to also...
I've been waiting for that moment all night long. Jim, have you ever seen that tape? Or I did. Kara, I still remember you were saying, I showed that at a retreat, and you said, you had me all teared up, and then Votruba said that, and my contacts popped out of my eyes. Paybacks are hell, dude. To be fair to Dr. Votruba, he had known me for all of a week at that time. That was his first convocation, and I think he had other things on his mind. Forgiven. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so honored that you were here tonight. Please know, as every commencement speaker always says, commencement doesn't mean ending, it means beginning. This is not the ending. This is the close of a chapter, but we're friends and family forever. I'm thanking God for Facebook. It's so wonderful. You know, it used to be that students would cross the stage and I would read their name, and it was the last time. I would often see about 90% of them. Now I stay connected to you. I love to know, you know, about your kids and your marriages and what you're eating for lunch, you know. I do love that, and I love that connection. Let's keep that connection. Let's remember we are family for life. Because, in fact, this is your alma mater. You all know what alma mater means. Alma mater means devoted mother, and that means NKU is your mama. This is your mama. And I expect you to be as devoted to her as she is to you. It's not my alma mater, but she adopted me, and we became family together. We're family for life. and I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. There is cake in the back there as well. We don't have any alcohol left, sorry. But there is water and I think soft drinks over there. Yeah, and Russ will still be here to talk and give hugs for as long as everyone's here. So thank you, everybody, and have a good night.